All right, I think we're ready to get started then. So thank you everybody again for joining us. This is Set Up Your First Year Families for Success, our webinar this month here at Campus ESP. We're very excited to get to some really helpful advice that hopefully will help you welcome your first year cohort to campus this fall. Just to let everybody know how this is going to go in case this is the first time that you've joined us for a webinar. Basically, you are using a Zoom webinar, which means that lines are on mute. Aside from the panelists, I can't see anybody, I can't hear anybody. So if you do have any questions at any point during today's webinar, we want to hear them. Use the chat or the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We will be monitoring both of those so that we make sure that any of your questions are brought to our panelists. If you have to duck out a little bit early, or if you have a colleague that you think would really appreciate the content that we're sharing today, this is being recorded. We will share that out with everybody probably tomorrow, Monday at the latest, along with the actual deck. So you'll have all the information we're sharing today and can use that across your team. Just so you know what we're getting into here, we're going to spend about 2 minutes tops, just letting you know who Campus ESP is if you're not familiar with us and why this is a topic that is near and dear to our hearts. Then we're going to walk you through 4 core tips to setting your first year families up for success. We're going to really try and show you some concrete examples of how you can do this on your campus that are being brought to us by our panelists. And then we're going to save room at the end for that Q&A. We want to make sure this is an interactive discussion, and that if you have any burning questions or you want to throw an idea out there, that you have the time and place to do so. And then one last reminder about that Q&A. So let's dig into it. I am joined today by 3 amazing women who are all really kind of experts in welcoming that first year class to campus. So I'm going to introduce them really quickly and ask them to just kind of share a little bit about their experience and what they do on their campuses. First is Sharon Brownlow. Sharon is the Director of Parent and Family Programs at Kennesaw State. Sharon, you want to say hi?
Hey everyone, I'm starting my 20th year at Kennesaw State. Hooty hoo. Proud to be here, excited to be here, and thank you Campus ESP for having me here.
Of course, we're so glad you're joining us. And then next is Mindy Miley. She is the Associate Vice President of First Year and Bridge Student Services at the College of Charleston. Mindy, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Good afternoon, all. I've been at the College of Charleston for the last 33 years, and the last 20 I've spent really working with families to help their students be successful. So I'm in the Office of New Student Programs here at the college. We manage our new student and family orientation programs as well as our bridge student programs.
Wonderful. And then lastly, I am joined by one of my colleagues, Ashley Perry, who is an account manager here at Campus ESP, but Ashley worked in higher ed before she was lucky enough to join us. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience, Ashley?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. Hi, everyone. I am Ashley Perry, account manager at Campus ESP, but I am the former associate director of student transitions and family programs at Coastal Carolina University, and also a former user of Campus ESP. So super excited to be here.
Thanks, guys. And then just also want to give everybody on the call a little context about the universities that these panelists are coming from, in particular, Sharon and Mindy. So can you guys walk us through a little bit about your campuses, the size, and kind of maybe what sets you apart? Because I know we've got people here from very small schools to very large public universities, and want to make sure that they see that these tips and kind of ideas can be applied to various kinds of schools.
Sure. Kennesaw State, we're located a little bit north of Atlanta. We are a large public. When I started 20 years ago, we were sort of mid-sized at 18,000, and we have grown exponentially, it feels like, just in the last few years. So we're kind of small geographically. We have 2 campuses, 8 miles apart. And yeah, we have a very large commuter population. Our residence life program is still fairly new, so we do have kind of a traditional feel, but we still have a large commuter population as well.
As far as the College of Charleston, we're a 4-year public liberal arts and sciences institution. We're right in the heart of downtown Charleston, South Carolina. Our campus, we have around 3,600 students that live on campus, and the rest are commuters. And we also have graduate programs here. So we have another 1,300 that are in graduate programs. So it's a large university with a small school feel, we like to say.
Love it. All right, and then here's our quick little thing that I promised I would get through in as quickly as possible. But just in case you are not familiar with Campus ESP, we wanted to help you guys get a little bit of context about some of the things that we're going to be sharing today. But Campus ESP is a complete parent engagement strategy solution. We offer family and parent portals that also are tied to newsletters, email announcement communications, and text messages so that you can really create a full parent engagement communication strategy through one system. We do this by working with both departments on the enrollment side, as well as through to student affairs and student success and parent and family programs. So that whole student life cycle experience to make sure that the parents of these students really do understand what's going on campus, know how to support their student through those various stages, and feel like they're involved. And we really do see that that does tie to a lot of positive outcomes on campus, both yield, retention, graduation rates, and things like that. So we're looking for ways to help create a family experience that's positive and enriching, but also really does lead to the outcomes that the school is really looking for. We are currently working with, actually, I think we're up to 330 as of last week, colleges and universities across the United States, probably getting over pretty close to 6 million families within our systems at this point, which is amazing to see this growth, and really excited that we're able to help so many families. And if you are looking to learn more after this call about Campus ESP as a platform and how we might be able to help you, we do have a ton of resources on our website. So I do highly encourage you afterwards to go to campusesp.com. You go to our research page. We have case studies. We have webinar recordings from other webinars. We have some best practices from our customers, just so you can learn a little bit more about how other schools are using families to hit their goals and how Campus ESP can help you. And with that, I'm officially being turned off and turning it over to our experts here. So Ashley, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. Well, awesome, Sharon. Mindy, y'all ready? Well, I want to start by saying that families are truly the success points for your students. So if you're wanting to get in front of your families, you want to feel connected to them, it's really important that you communicate with them. And so we've learned that current families are expecting communication at least weekly. So 85% of that. So that's grown from 2020 to 2022. So not trying to give you heartburn, but the communication expectation is growing. So I'm sure it's even showing higher results for prospective families. So if you're on that side of the house and you still work with both prospective and current families, those numbers are definitely increasing every year. And with that, 41% of college students communicate with their families daily. So if you're interested in knowing why that's important, is because their students are leaning on those families, and they're leaning on you to support those families to then support those students. And with that, we want you to think of your parents and families supporters as advisors. So you really can help move the needle when it comes to student success, retaining them, providing them with great information. And so when you think of your families as advisors to really set those students up for success, it really does help in the long run. We've learned that 73% of parents say content from Campus ESP really helps better advise their student. So if you're using the system currently or have families in your system, you really can help support those families with their students. And since I can't see you all, we want to give you all some time to interact. I don't know who's in the space, what school you're coming from, or if you are thinking about Campus ESP. So we want to have some time for y'all to kind of show us who you are. So Mel's going to launch a poll.
Yeah, and let's hope that this works here. This is always like the moment of truth. Oh, it puts me in here. Here we go. All right, so everyone can see this question on their screen. Yes. All right, so if you're not familiar with Mentimeter, you're going to grab a phone or an iPad or your own laptop screen and go to menti.com and type in this code, and you should see this question pop up on your device as well. And then you're just going to let us know the answer to this. How often are you currently communicating with your first year families? And we should start to see you guys' responses in real time. So somebody got it through. Let's see who else as we get this through here. Give it a minute.
Awesome. Well, while you're doing that, I would love to hear from Sharon and Mindy, like what were y'all doing prior to Campus ESP to support your families and share communication expectations with them?
Yeah, I'll take it first. I formerly worked in our new student programs office directly with orientation. And so during those few years, when I was starting to work with families, we were just using a newsletter, a really simple newsletter, very static, wasn't very tailored to anybody's, interests, but it was sort of a way for us to communicate before orientation as well as after orientation and try to meet some of those needs. So it was basically that and a little bit of Facebook. And that served us okay for a little while.
Facebook, I definitely have been a survivor of that. So
mark yourself safe. Yeah.
Yes.
Like Sharon, we did a newsletter, both print and digital newsletter, but again, it was a pretty static medium for us to communicate with families. We also had for 10 years a live parent listserv that was real time, which was very active, almost too active for us to manage. We have a pretty small staff. We managed it, but it was difficult. And we also used Facebook for a while, but we were looking for something that was a more structured and more intentional way to get communication out to our families.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, when we launched Campus ESP in 2017, we were just doing enough to support families, not exactly reaching them every week or bi-weekly. So we really did step our game up with communication to families with Campus ESP in 2017, but also like in COVID too. We really had to rethink orientation and ways to support those families. All right.
Looks like our responses have kind of evened out, although I know that a lot of people maybe just don't have the access to do this right now, but interesting spread across the different options here. I'm always surprised to see things on either side. And I'm not surprised to see the bulk in the middle here.
Mm-hmm. So we're seeing some bi-weekly, which is good. Definitely family expectations are showing weekly. So definitely hope that this helps you all with communication and your efforts and ways to kind of engage them more frequently.
All right, let's get back into the data now. Switch this up. How's it gonna let me go? All right, I'm not quite sure how to make this my full screen again. So unfortunately, you guys get to see my tabs for the rest of this presentation.
Okay. Real time.
It's the reality.
All right. So of course, when you think about your families and their students, that the first 6 weeks is truly important to that student success and their likelihood to stay at the university. And so I want you all to kind of think about, like, how do you know after the first 6 weeks that your communication efforts with your families have been successful? I would love to hear from Mindy and Sharon, just your experience with this or any advice that you could possibly share with our attendees.
Well, I'll take this one and then I'm sure Sharon can follow up. We're relatively new using Campus ESP, but based in the time, we're in our second year now. We have seen a decrease in phone calls, but also since we do orientation programs, I see that the questions that are coming from parents seem to be more informed, like they already have read the information, and so it's great that they already have some information prior to coming to orientation. And then I'll let Sharon take it from here.
Sure. Yeah. I would say, as simple as, hey, thanks, great job. Which, I feel like sometimes we don't just sometimes just say thank you when we appreciate something. And so it's always so kind to read some of those comments and I love that we can read those comments to how families can interact in the platform. So they're like, great, love this, thank you. So I love that piece of feedback. I love, of course, on the admin side of things, being able to see, how many clicks and things like that are on certain posts, because then that helps me say, this was important, we need more of this, or I didn't hit the mark on that. Maybe I need to tweak that a little bit because there were some questions, that populated. So that message may could be a little bit more clearer next time. But yeah, I think, same thing. I feel like we are having less of repetitive emails too, which is amazing and helpful when you're like, okay, we need to build a post out. When I talk to a campus partner, I'm like, what question do you get all the time? Let's make a post about it. Right. So that's been really helpful. And I think that shows that we're doing some good things and helpful things.
Absolutely. Anytime you can reduce phone calls and emails to your office or other campus partners, that's always a great tool to use within Campus CSP for sure. So starting with our first tip, we want you to kind of think about guiding your parents on how they can support their student through the college transition. So the first 6 weeks is super important, but we want them to stay beyond that. And so setting them up for success early would then set them up to persist from year to year. So I'd love to dive in more about this too. But of course, we want you to share from the University of Michigan that nearly 50% of incoming students show depressive symptoms. So there's a lot of things that students go through from the first week of classes to the third or fourth week, whether it's homesickness, belonging, not getting their best grades on tests or exams. So they're going through a lot in the first 6 weeks, and that really can make or break their experience at the university. So just want to start with some support resources, because students are leaving their homes, they're leaving their norm to go to college if they're staying on campus or even just trying to belong on campus. And so support resources are important to share not only with the student, but their families. So Mindy, starting with you, you have a post here that I would love to dive in just to share your resources that you provide and why you decided to use it as a post in Campus CSP.
Well, we focus on this a great deal at orientation one, so we wanted to share that information as well through our portal. So not only our first year families would get that, but all of our families. And a lot of that through, especially the first 6 weeks, but throughout the year, we're sharing our counseling center, health service area, also our peer support counselors. We also share that kind of information. And then we do stuff throughout the year. We have Cougar Countdown, which is our support for students during the exam period, during midterm and final exams. So we do midnight breakfast, a lot of things with dogs. Dog therapy is big.
Love it.
Anytime you have a dog on campus, it's like, the stress level goes down. So we have that, and then we have Scoops with Shu, who is president. Shu is, he's president. He'll scoop ice cream and doing things like that. So we're promoting that, the mental health, the importance of mental health and the resources available on campus throughout the year, but particularly during the first 6 weeks too.
Absolutely. Well, I'm all for some dog therapy as a dog lover over here. So maybe I need to drive down to Charleston and have some fun. Sharon, tell me about your academic resources for your families.
Yeah, I'll just kind of start with, I try to create content with what they need, but when they need it. That seems to kind of resonate the most. So we kind of like Mindy was saying with orientation, I try to get them through the first 6 weeks. Like, let's just think about these first 6 weeks and what's really major for you to think about then. So I do a lot of normalizing, like with the W curve, if you guys are familiar with that. But here's what is probably happening. Here's probably your reaction, which is totally normal, but here's something helpful that you can follow up with your student on. So throughout the summer, I think we have like 29 orientations throughout the summer. So I take what I talk about in person, because not everybody's able to attend, and then try to package that into these posts within the platform. So kind of move them forward through those 6 weeks. And this one in particular was highlighting some things that were coming up for fall, just to make sure that, hey, are you meeting with your advisor? Like, you kind of got this first 6 weeks, but also it's crazy to think that during your first 6 weeks, you're also thinking about spring registration, which I think is really baffling sometimes. So I've been trying to work a little bit harder and smarter with our academic advising folks and their resources, had them come to Parent Family Weekend, which, we try to meet that mark of right after the first 6 weeks. So it's a good, another touch base to put eyes on your student. Are they doing okay? Are they not doing okay? And what do we need to do about that? But yeah, so this one was really just making sure that they knew sort of what their next steps were. And so our director of advising raised her hand and said, hey, I'll help you with that. So she kind of made a video PowerPoint where she just kind of talked through a few slides and said, this is your next steps. So I think it was really helpful, both for families and for families to share with their student.
Absolutely. I don't think sometimes people understand the importance to advising and how it's important to educate your families, just because some maybe have not gone to college. So any resources that you can share that could be a barrier to that student success can be plugged into Campus ESP, or just other resources that you are wanting to share with your family. So the more they understand, the more they can help them. All right. So on the note with like families that maybe have not gone to college, thinking about your first-gen families and what they need to support their students. So more first-gen students are applying to college, which is great. We've seen an increase of about 43%, and they're actually going to college more so than your traditional students. So thinking about your ways to really support those families of first-gen students and what they could be missing, any barriers that could hinder them from, one, supporting their student, but just understanding the college process as a whole. So I think when it comes to your first-gen families and just first-gen and first-year families as a whole, what are some great conversation starters so then they can have more conversations with their students? So Sharon, if you wouldn't mind starting, I have a cute post that I am really curious to learn more about. So if you could share first, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I'm not exactly sure the date of this one, but we sort of started them in 2020 when we knew that students were home. And so there was a laughable moment where I found this picture of owls looking at each other, kind of like, we're in the same room. We don't really know what to talk about. And so just trying to walk families through, hey, wherever you are, whether you're with your student or they're far away, what are some helpful things right now? Again, kind of thinking about what they need and when they need it. So trying to take it month by month. So my goal was, let's kick off the month with a few. This is kind of what you should be thinking about conversation wise with your student, then kind of peppering in. So this was an announcement. And so it had some of those links to another post that I had created with those specific conversation starters, but also kind of like a good feel good, type of content as well, to say, have these conversations, again, normalizing where they might be in the process of the semester with their student. And really just trying to also package any orientation content that families, whether they're first gen or they just, geographically couldn't come to orientation or whatever the case may be, kind of packaging some of that to say, talk about this, remember this, and try to kind of make it bite-sized for them.
Absolutely. I think orientation is already like a huge take on for families and students. Sometimes they miss sessions because they're overwhelmed, but orientation can only be so long. So if you're thinking about ways to plug in some extra support, your announcements and posts really can actually supplement some of that content that they learned at orientation. All right, Mindy.
Well, this particular post, I'm one of the primary speakers to our families at orientation during the summer. So there's a session that we do about conversations to have with your student. And like Sharon, I want to make sure that those families that didn't get a chance to attend our orientation still got some of that information. I think during orientation, I started off pretty light, like how to wash clothes. We have our colors are maroon and white. How that can backfire on the student to more, and then we're getting to more serious things like finances, creating a budget, and mental health, that kind of thing. So, and I carry that theme throughout the fall semester. just like conversations to have, including midterm, like how to have that conversation. What do midterm grades mean? When we get close to the withdrawal period, course withdrawal, like what does that mean? We also find that's important to share with our first gen parents. We have a pretty large first gen community in our portal, and a lot of that information about finances, academic calendars, and just the process of drop add withdrawal. It's sometimes complex, and we like pushing that information out through our portal, and it's been very effective.
Absolutely. I love it. And of course, as Mindy shared, first-gen families engage at high rates across the board. So in campus CSP, the average is 69%. But as you can see with College of Charleston, it's 79%. That's even above campus CSP's average. But then Kennesaw State, you're not too far behind, still engaging at really healthy rates. So if you're thinking about your first-gen families and what they possibly need to be successful, they're craving information for sure. They want to feel connected, have a sense of belonging. So think about those families and what could really support them throughout the college process. All right, so connecting your families with updates on their students' progress, diving deeper into that student success and retention. All right, so we have done a case study with several institutions, just learning about their student retention and how they use Campus CSP to support those efforts. And we've learned that on average, student retention was higher for a student when their parent or guardian received regular updates or student success in Campus CSP. And so Sharon actually has the Purple Management module, was actually a part of the case study. So we'd love to hear about your experience and how this is really supporting your families and students.
Yeah, absolutely. We started with content in late 2018, and then we added in the FERPA module in 2019. And so, yeah, it was great kind of going into the pandemic, kind of, hey, link up with your student, know these things. And of course, it's only accelerated since then. But yeah, I actually take them through a few screenshots during orientation, because that is, kind of like Mindy was saying, I'm the person that they hear from, unfortunately, for 45 minutes during orientation. So I use that time. I try to make the most of that time to, one, kind of normalize what they are going through and can be going through and probably will be going through. But then I take kind of that second half of orientation to say, here's how KSU can help you and serve you best. And so a huge part of that is first telling them just about the platform in general with screenshots. And then I say, if you're ready to take it a little bit farther, you're probably ready for that. You're probably used to that. So again, I kind of do that normalizing of how many of you are used to seeing and logging into a student portal of some sort. And they're all, kind of sheepishly like, yeah, that's me. And so I'm like, good news, you have that here too. It looks a little different. And so I try to strike that balance of, here's what we can do for you. Here's what we can't do for you. And I think that's a really important conversation to have at orientation, specifically to say, this is probably what you're used to. We can't do quite all those things. And this is where we rely on you to have a really good conversation with your student to say, hey, what's going to be normal for our family? What are we going to be able, we're going to have check-ins once a week, twice a week, kind of giving them those training wheels until you both feel sort of comfortable, because this is new territory for both of you. But really just going through screenshots saying, hey, click this. It's really easy. You can send these waivers over, and then just being able to see the comfort, I think, that you give those families just right there in orientation session to say, okay, I have a place I can go and check on things, and I try to use humor every now and again, and saying, you don't want to be that parent that is caught dabbling around in their students, place and maybe failing tests for them accidentally or crazy things, right? So be here, be connected here, and be able to encourage your student and nudge your student and help them through success through this variety of ways. So yeah, and then we're actually onboarding. I'm really excited about this, the SMS model. So I think this will be a really neat tandem experience of, you've got all these tools, and then how can we nudge and remind you about these tools as we're going through? So not to I didn't mean to actually put a Campus CSP plug in there for you guys, but I'm really excited about it.
You can never have too many nudges for families. They are craving the information. So you're just doubling up on the communication efforts for sure. Of course, it's just an example of how you are spreading the word for families to connect to their students to get more information on their progress. So this is a digital FERPA waiver here from Sharon's portal. So our system does send out regular updates to families. It tells them to connect to their students. So there's things on our end that we're doing to support you all in those efforts. All right, this is our last tip. We're moving. So this one is to build excitement around important milestones and events, which is like my favorite thing coming from higher ed, like getting your families excited, involved, feeling connected. So I'm a connection person. So anytime you can make them feel involved in a sense of belonging, it's important. Of course, we have some data to back it. So 40% of families want to feel more connected and involved in their students' institution. So 41% of students are connecting with their families regularly, and then your families are also want to be connected to you. So let's talk about some involvement opportunities. So Mindy, why don't you share your 1 month anniversary that I think is super smart and like a cool way to connect with your families?
Well, our first year families are especially involved and they do want information as often as possible. So we celebrate the first month of a new student joining us, as well as other milestones throughout the academic year, from leadership awards to the dean's list to athletic accomplishments, to interesting things that our students are doing in their internship. So parents like to read about the accomplishments, but also just about what the timeline is, especially for our first year students joining our institution. We try to make it fun, use as much humor as possible. And this is just an example of that.
I love it. Of course, you're my dog. So Sharon, I would love to hear more about your family weekend if you have one.
Yeah, we definitely have family weekend. It's a great place to be able to point families in the next step. I'm a big part of, again, like chunking things out, not giving them more than they need at one time. So we kind of focus on, I kind of try to distract families with a family weekend invitation that first week of classes. That seems to work the best, where it's like, okay, we've gotten up to this point. I've gotten my student ready for classes. We're in the thick of it, and all of a sudden, bing, to their inbox, they get a family weekend invite. They can start actionable items there, whether it's registering for family weekend, getting that hotel block, or being a part of that hotel block that we've set up for them. So it kind of gives them some action items. Of course, some nudges to connect with them, speaking to the former tip of the FERPA module. Hey, if you haven't had a chance to do that, be sure to do that this week if you haven't done it. So kind of give them a little checklist. But right after family weekend, we also do some engagement with No Taste Like Home, which is our cooking contest. So we like to say, hey, if you didn't get a chance to come to family weekend, or maybe you did and you loved it and you want more, come back out from the comfort of your couch instead of having to come in person to be able to submit recipes and see if you and your students will win the Golden Spatula Award. So we usually do that family weekend in October, No Taste Like Home in November. We partner up with a couple of campus partners to make that happen. And then, just try to give them some digital content along the way to keep them engaged. And then until we have that in-person opportunity again in spring, which is usually partnering with a campus partner again, like Day of Service or a College of the Arts Spring Festival, those kinds of things. So, but yeah, kind of keeping them, making sure, it reminds me of going to a conference. When you ever go to a conference and then it's the last day, and then on the table they have the thing for the next conference to remind you. So I try to keep that in mind of like, what's the next thing that I need to be pushing them to. So that's kind of been helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of institutions don't have a family weekend, but you can use Campus ESP to really support virtual events for your families. Maybe they can't come to campus, but from an access standpoint, Campus ESP really can help you support families that maybe can't come to campus as often. So I know, Mindy, you have some virtual events that you have on campus. And I know I'm sharing that you do a great family weekend. So you can do a mix of both if you wish, but really having that sense of belonging and ways for them to connect is important within your system.
I'll just say one more thing, if that's okay, about that. You kind of gave me a great thought of, in 2020, we couldn't do anything in person. And so I was so thankful to be able to have this medium to say, what are just, what are things going on in North Georgia? What are things going on in Atlanta that I can point families to? So I would just grab a screenshot, grab the information and send it on, their way. And that at least made them feel like maybe they weren't comfortable going to that event, but they were aware of it. Sometimes, just like you said, Ashley, that belonging, that engagement, it's all of what we're comfortable with, but sometimes we just want to be invited, right? So I think that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. Awesome. My dog is trying to steal the show. So if you hear her, I'm so sorry, but she's a honorary account manager. So she is just, sharing her love for parent engagement. All right, we are getting ready for some Q&A, but want to share some warm and fuzzies. Your families really do love what you do for them. And so just wanted you all to see that the connection is important to them. So just going to read one from the College of Charleston. Your parent portal makes me feel connected to campus. And I think that's super, super important when you think about your families. They just want to feel connected. Their student is leaving them. Maybe they're going down the road. Maybe they just go to campus for the day, but they want to feel connected and feel like they belong at your university. So if you're looking for ways to do that, you can definitely do that in campus CSP, on campus in general, but want them to feel supported and connected and feel like they have an affinity to the space. And if you're ever curious, you don't know where to start when it comes to what your families need to know or want to know, this is a great starting point. So your families want to know about all these things on this screen. I think what sticks out the most to me is about the academic calendar. That's a wonky one for them to understand. My one thing I would say at orientation is do not book flights to go home for breaks until finals have been set. And what do? They still book flights. So teach them about the academic calendar, the importance of listening to their student, but there's several things that you could share that really would help make the family feel more connected and also have a better understanding of the experience. So cost and tuition, any financial aid packages that you can share, billing, all that great information to share. And of course, if you want to learn more about Campus ESP or just want to get more involved with us, we would love that. And we do have demos at Tuesday at 2:00 every day. If you just want to learn more. AHAP in November. So if you attend that conference or would like to go, we'll be there. We have a pre-con with AHAP. And so if you want to connect with other customers and connect with us, we would love to have you. And of course, we have a full website that is beautiful, full of blogs and resources. So if you need some research to back up your efforts, we have that on our website too. All right. We're ready for some questions. I've been seeing the chat and looking at some of the comments, so I'm excited to kind of dive in. I know, Mel, you're probably taking over, but we'd love to see what's in here.
Yeah, we definitely have a couple of questions and some conversation starters, I think, which is great. And Ashley, I highly encourage you to also share your experience here in these answers, because I think all three of you have some different perspectives and some interesting things you can share. The first question that came through, I'm going to kind of try and go a little bit in order of when they came through, was somebody who's asking about the frequency in which to communicate with parents. If you aren't familiar with Campus ESP, there is an option to have the parent select how often they receive like a newsletter digest with all the updates that have been provided by the school. And you can let them choose it. They want it every time there's something new, weekly, bi-weekly, such, so forth. But the question here is that is there a actual frequency that we would suggest, knowing that the parents are asking for it weekly or more, should they kind of override that and send it to them weekly, or should they kind of leave it into that flexible area?
So I'll jump in. I think when I started with Campus ESP, I wanted to start small, kind of get some feedback from families and see what seemed to be the general pulse. I can definitely see that I agree. I agree with the statistics. I do feel like they're asking for more. I do like being able to say, you know, at orientation or whenever I'm with them, when we're kind of doing some onboarding, I like to give them that flexibility, and, you know, because sometimes when you feel like you can control some things, that feels better. So I like being able to say, you can set the newsletter up to the frequency that you desire. But just know that we, you know, kind of try to develop a content calendar. I'm still developing it. It's not perfect now, especially since we're going to be onboarding text messaging. So trying to figure out what meets the mark of, you know, what should be sent as an announcement, you know, what is urgent enough to hit their inboxes. And again, telling them that in person that, hey, I'm not trying to spam you, but I am going to try and take a lens of, what do I feel like is timely? What do I feel like needs to hit your inbox? And then leave it up to you as to, you know, when you would like to go in and kind of search for things on your own, or wait for the newsletter to hit you. And again, knowing when a text message might nudge you to do something. So trying to put some intentionality behind that, but also take the feedback that I've learned over the last few years, as well as, you know, giving them some of that choice, I think is important.
And for College of Charleston, I think the first year we were still learning how to manage it. Now we've started our own content calendar, and also creating messages and then spacing it out for a certain date. So you can write something today, and I have messages that are set to go out in August when the time is right. So I do try to put something out there in our portal on a weekly basis. So there's new content being fed through their newsletter every week. And we do find that most of our parents that are subscribed, we have around 9,800 people subscribed. And most of them want weekly information or have selected that option. So, which is a good sign.
That's great. All right, keep getting questions. This is actually awesome. I love when we get lots of questions here. This one here is a good one, and it talks about something we didn't actually really get into in the session today, which is the metrics and analytics that Campus ESP provides you on the back end as an administrator to see how families are actually engaging in the content that you are sharing. So this question really gets into that. How, you know, Mindy and Sharon, are you using those metrics and analytics that you have to better inform you about your programming and how you want to change your communication strategy with your families?
Well, personally, I love to look at the data and the analytic of the whole system. We have a very robust dashboard that comes with Campus ESPs provided, which is, I think, relatively new in this last year. So that gives me an idea of how my communities are doing. I can see if like my out-of-state parents are more involved than my in-state parents, but also how many people dig in and click the links that are found in our content. So to me, I like watching that information. And our senior leadership team is also very interested in the data. And that's good information that I can pull up a quick report from that and share, you know, in a meeting, in a leadership meeting. And they always like that kind of stuff. So that makes me really happy to have instant access to that information in real time. And I think Sharon mentioned this too, as our content, just being able to see which posts are getting a lot of action, how many people are opening that. And then I can see things that we've written that it's like, not many people were interested in that particular piece of information or the way it was written. So that gives me a lot of info as well.
Yeah, pretty much echo everything Mindy just said. The only thing I'll have to add to that would be when I'm working directly with campus partners, because I'm an office of one, and being able to kind of pull them in and utilize them to say, hey, you know, one, do you want to create a community together? And then you come in and be a content admin, which is fabulous. When we can make that happen, I think I've onboarded about to onboard about 5 people who raised their hand this summer to say, hey, actually, could I just do that? I'm like, yes, I would love for you to do that. Because I don't know all the ins and outs of our housing and, you know, dining and all those things. So it's lovely to be able to pull a campus partner in, get them to understand what it is. And they love the data behind it too, because just like Mindy was saying, I'm able to say, say, here, let's look at this dashboard. You can see that this posted like this, but maybe if we make a few changes, it could do even better. Or maybe we need to think about having this post a little earlier because they're already starting to hit your inbox or my inbox with these types of questions. So, so getting that's a really helpful piece of information and feedback for our campus partners for sure.
I think I'd love to add that a lot of users of Campus CSP are a staff of one. And so Sharon, you saying that, and they're trying to find ways to get buy-in on campus. And so the data from Campus CSP really shows like what families are engaging with. And so whether it's housing, financial aid, if you're trying to get partners to kind of help you with the content because they are the experts in those areas, the system will tell you exactly what your families want. And so if you need to get some extra support, your families are showing you that in the system. So use your metrics and your data to really, one, get support and buy-in from your campus, but also just to gauge your content overall.
Great. Trying to combine a couple of questions in this one, just because in the interest of time. And I think there's a very similar theme here, which is virtual activities for families. So we're getting some questions that are a little bit more about virtual orientation for parents, some that are about if you can't get families to actually come to campus for family weekend, are you offering anything that's a virtual offering there? But I guess holistically, if you guys could both talk about the virtual opportunities that you're giving families to either get information or just feel engaged with campus and the kind of results that you're seeing from those.
Well, actually, we didn't do a lot of virtual things with families until COVID hit, and then we were kind of forced to do a lot more with that. And then after, when we have an in-person orientation, so during the COVID time, we had to offer that virtually, so we got to be experts pretty quickly. We've gone back to in-person orientation at this point, but one of the things we have done is had a family webinar series, and we take different topics since we don't want to just talk about everything that a parent needs to know. So we offer these before our orientations begin. And one is just like preparing for orientation. It's been crazy successful. We've had over almost 300 people attend that virtually, and then we've had over 1,000 hits just watching the video of the webinar. So it's just me and some of my campus friends that are just talking about orientation, where to find information, and just kind of what to expect. And then we go on with different topics, like our next webinar was about preparing for the advising portion of orientation, or when the student actually registers for class, which can be really stressful for the student and parent. So just telling the parent what to expect when the student goes to the advisory room, sits down and registers. I think it made it a lot stressful for everyone involved, and our parents that have come to orientation so far they knew what to expect. So it made our life easier. It wasn't a big shock as far as what was happening. So, and parents are attending those sessions, and we put our webinars on our YouTube channel so those that couldn't attend can access the recording. Then we promote the recordings through Campus CSP. I didn't send out any email. I just put a announcement out there to talk about our family webinar series, and then posted the recordings there, and parents are accessing those. So we're really pleased about it.
Yeah, we're very fortunate and thankful to be able to have Campus CSP during the pandemic. I used to work directly with orientation, used to be over every little bit of family orientation. I no longer do that. I'm just the parent and family programs department, which is a department of one, me, with all the families. But I work in tandem very closely with our orientation friends, and we still, we have gone back to almost all in-person orientations, but we are doing still about 3 virtual for the summer, just to be able to give that offering. And so I speak to them directly during that opportunity and talk about Campus CSP and talk about the ways to be engaged as a family member, which is great. And then moving through the semester, really just try to do a hybrid approach to offering family weekend, but I'm not able to sort of conduct behind the scenes online opportunities for family weekends. So we kind of have gone back to family weekend is all in person, but we still offer those other opportunities like No Taste Like Home, that is kind of a virtual call to action to do things. And then we pepper in some campus conversations. So I really like to just try to add a variety of things, static posts that are helpful, but also when I think that it is important to have campus partners, for families to hear campus partners hear their voices, because I think a lot of times, sometimes you just feel like, oh, this is, I don't know these people behind this office. And so being able to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit to say, hey, this is a really great person, and this is a really great person that works for this office. And, advising comes to mind. I did some recorded, we didn't invite families to come live to it, but we recorded ourselves kind of, I think what Mindy was talking about, having a conversation. Hey, what are your 5 tips and tricks as we move forward through the summer, as we move forward into the fall? And so then I'll try to do some in the fall and some in the spring of those types of campus conversations that can kind of prep people for the next term, just kind of keeping them in transition really. But then we have had programs that we've done virtual. I partnered with a local resource that does some conflict management. I thought that was really important during COVID. And so we as a paid vendor, I said, hey, could you come on? Can we just have some conversations? And so the families took like an Enneagram quiz, or not quiz, but, Enneagram type of feedback thing, and then found out their type. And then they talked about, well, what might your student be, and what kind of conversations could you have with your student if you're this type and they're that type, and those kinds of things. So, and what does mediation look like that at home right now? So yeah, and then we did a yoga workshop. We did a live yoga workshop, which was a little weird. I'm not gonna lie, but it was also fine. So we were like, how about if I just turn their camera off, and then we'll just do it that way. So yeah, I mean, I think, for me, being able to work with people, and make it manageable. Oh, and one that was, really, really successful just recently was our off-campus housing. So we only have about close to 6,000 beds for a campus of 43,000. And so, we have to lean into what are our off-campus offerings. And so we have a partnership with a company that kind of vets some of our off-campus apartment complexes. And so we had a conversation with them and did a presentation. It was live. And so parents and families could sign up for that, which they did. And then we were able to push that recording out afterwards, all through Campus CSP, which was awesome.
It's great. All right, I'm going to try and squeeze 2 more questions into the next 7 minutes before we officially are up, and I need to let people get back to their day-to-day. So the first one is a question that I don't know if I've ever done a webinar or a live session at a conference where this question has not come up. So I feel like we got to keep bringing it back, because it really does stick out at the top of mind, I think, people who are working with families. And that is, how are you getting the contact information for your parents and families? What is your process? I know a lot of schools feel like they're a little behind the 8 ball on this. They haven't been doing it historically, or they're not quite sure the right place to do it. So Minty and Sharon, if you can share how you are collecting that parent information and getting it into Campus CSP so that the families are aware of the resources that you're offering them.
Well, we are collecting information from our admissions office. And since I'm in new student programs, we get all the orientation information. So one of the things that we've done this year that's been very successful, we have an Acceptance Students Day, and we have a QR code. So parents can just scan our portal, Campus ESP portal address with their phone and be like, they're in. We actually subscribe all the parents attending family orientation into the portal. And then when they arrive, I talk to them about it. I was hesitant to do that at first, but they thought it was great because, oh, you did the work for me. Thank you so much. And they were in, they were already getting information prior to orientation, and then they knew what I was talking about. So they were like, no, I love it. I'm glad you did it. So, and then those that haven't not subscribed, we have that same QR code at orientation. So it's all about, it's all on campus. Our interns have that, and they're like, and I was like, hey, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just scan this, and they're in. So we had like great success with that. So yeah, we work with our admissions office primarily though to get the information. We also share our use of the portal on our campus website as well. So we have a parents web page, and if they go to that web page, they're going to say, hey, we're going to communicate with you in these ways, but here's where we're going to share information about student success. So that's on our website as well.
Yeah, I would echo that. We try to work as closely with enrollment services as possible. Whatever collateral they're kind of giving out at prospective events, we try to make sure that we have our address there. Say, if you're a family or supporter and you want to get involved right now, here's the best way to do that and find out more information. So we make sure that it's there. We obviously, I speak at every session over the summer. I talk extensively about how to keep, how to be involved and informed as a family member. And Campus ESP is a huge part of that. And then we do work strategically with a few campus partners, one being housing. So housing does collect family supporter information, then they do give it to us. And then we do a direct import into that community, which is helpful. Much like Mindy said, I was a little nervous about that, but that seems to be working really well. They can unsubscribe, but I don't think that percentage is very high. And then we also do the same thing with new student orientation programs. So they send us their contact information and we do a direct import. So I have a community call, New to the Nest. I try to do that every year so that, hey, if you're just new to our community, whether it's, you're still a little bit prospective, but maybe your student was just accepted, or maybe you're a spring admit, any of that, just if you feel new, come to this community first in Campus ESP and learn a little bit more. So I try to have some kind of starter videos and information there.
That's great. And then I feel like this is a great question to end on. And I do apologize because I don't think we're going to get to all of these questions today, but I'll give you one alternative in a second. But here's the last question I want to do live is an individual who's reaching out here and she says, I am new to a position in parent and family programs. What is the one piece of advice that you would give when you're working with parents and families? So you guys have 60, I think, some years of experience between the three of you dealing with families, understanding their needs, wants, concerns. What's that one piece of advice for somebody who's starting on this path and how they can really build that engagement in that relationship?
I think being genuine, being intentional, and listening. So those are, parents really resonate when I'm like, hey, this is what you get. I'm going to try to do my best, and really just kind of set those expectations for them to say, here's what I can do. Tell me if I'm not meeting the mark, and I'll be as intentional as I can be. And that usually that's a great starter, I think.
I have to agree with that for sure. Also, if you're just thinking about joining Campus ESP, I would say look for your campus champion. I had some in our senior leadership team that had come from institutions that used to use Campus ESP, so they were familiar. So when I started talking about it, I found a champion in our provost here at the College of Charleston, which is a good champion to have. And she was able to secure the funds and, made it happen. So there's always a champion on campus that understands the value of communicating with your families and parents. So look for that person to help make your case.
And I would just say enlist them to help you with whatever you need. So families will tell you exactly what they want you to know. They're not afraid, whether it's good, bad, ugly, but you can really learn a lot just from their one experience of being a family member and what they're hoping to gain from joining your institution and hopefully calling that place home for 4 to 5 years. So enlist them, get advice from them, ask their feedback. They truly are not afraid. They love to talk. They love to overshare. So I think if you're trying to figure out what to do, they will definitely tell you.
Very, very true. And we are right up on time here. So at first, I want to thank Mindy, Sharon, Ashley for joining me this afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. But I think we had a solid hour of really great discussion and information being shared here. I do have the emails for these three ladies on the screen as well. So if your question did not get answered today because of time, or you think of something after you get off this call, please reach out. They have all willingly given this information out. They are happy to share their experiences, their advice, and we just want to make sure that everybody on this call feels ready to attack the fall in your next new class and do it with gusto and get those families really engaged. So thank you for everyone for joining us. Recordings will be going out shortly. And if you have any questions, please reach out. We appreciate it.
Thank you.